been busy this week on my day off. I worked outside in my little garden in the backyard. It was full of dead stuff, dead leaves and dead plants. You know, I always feel a little bit discouraged the first day that I go out in the spring to work in that garden, because all summer I have tended it very lovingly and carefully, so that by summer's end, like, August, it's so full of growth. And then spring comes and I walk out to survey the landscape, and it just always looks dead to me. It's full of pointy little sticks, and I always find a few pieces of produce that have frozen and shriveled up on the vine. It's not at all lovely. And I always feel a tad bit hopeless. So when I start working in that garden, when I start digging around, I'm just amazed what I find in the midst of all that dead stuff, This week I discovered that the wild petunia I transplanted from the front yard in the parsonage to the garden in the back, it's already green and growing. Underneath the frostbitten oregano, Connie, you'll be glad to know, yes, there is a new crop, and it's like ready to harvest right now, today. There was 2 very healthy clumps of salvia taking off under that dead salvia on top. The parsley that I let go to seed in fall has just taken off. It just poked up all over the place in mass. And the ice plant that's been there for a couple of years, it just spread like wildfire during the winter. In fact, it's already started to bloom. I put a picture of it in the bulletin for you. Isn't that sweet? The leafing part looked brown, but there were flowers on top. The thing that surprised me the very most, though, was this verbena that Rusty gave me. It's probably been 3 years ago now. When I first looked at it, I thought, oh man, that poor thing is done for. But when I started digging around and cleaning it up, I found, in fact, that it was quite full of life. In fact, I pulled up a couple of what I thought were dead branches, and I accidentally uprooted some lovely green sprouts that were clinging to those stems. It looked like it was done for, but where I only saw death, new life was ready to grow and leaf and flower. During the season of Lent, we look for and we learn to rely on the death that gives life. So during these 40 days, the cross is both the journey and the destination. From a worldly perspective, the crucifixion is nothing but pain and suffering and loss and dying. But this dark image of destruction is in truth the glorious bud of new life. Henry Nouwen once wrote that the cross is a sign of radical transformation in our manner of thinking, feeling, and living. The cross is a sign of radical transformation in our manner of thinking, feeling, and living. I read something very interesting in my New Interpreter's Bible commentary this week about our passage this morning from 2 Corinthians. Specifically, the interesting thing I read concerned verse 17, and so that's what I want to concentrate on this morning. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17. It says, if anyone is in Christ, that person is a new creation. The old has gone, the new is here. Or I actually like it much better from the New American Standard Version. It says, therefore, If anyone is in Christ, there is a new creature. The old things passed away. Behold, new things have come. What I read this week in my commentary said that in the Greek, and this letter of 2 Corinthians was written in Greek. So the Greek in this particular verse, verse 17, it can correctly be interpreted in a couple of ways. Number one, we can hear that the old things are forever gone and forgotten. And so now everything is brand new. Or number two, we can hear that the old things have become new things. Both interpretations are correct. But the latter interpretation tells us that the old isn't gone. It has just been forever transformed. And it's right with life. If we hear the verse in this way, if we allow the old to become new, then we can understand that everything which came before has given birth to what is now present. I love that. That's the way I'm choosing to hear this particular verse today. I'm hearing it as a beautiful witness of God's faithful love, which is continually at work within us. Through God's grace, every morsel of our lives becomes the seed and the fertilizer and the water and the soil and the oxygen and the sunshine that is going to bring forth a lush and vital crop. Even when we think those old things are dead and buried, in God's hands they become a much needed ingredient for what is now living within us. Reminds me of that verbena, Rusty. I thought it was dead. But right there on those brittle branches were these happy little leaves pushing their way out. They were climbing those dried brown stalks, all green and vivacious and full of life. In our Lenten Bible study book, I like to be sure to bring that up each week, so if you're not coming to the study, you know what you're missing. In our Bible study book this week, it's entitled Easter Earthquake. It's written by James Harnish, and the author writes, God meets us wherever we are and loves us too much to leave us there. God meets us wherever we are and loves us too much to leave us there. In other words, we don't change so that God will love us. But when we discover that God is already loving us, we are indeed changed. The work of grace is the work of transformation, and God uses our past to carry us into a beautiful and vital future. From the old things, God calls forth new things. I've counseled a number of people over the past 17 years who were in difficult situations in their life. And they came to me asking if they were experiencing those difficulties because God was punishing them for the way that they had lived in their past. And oh, how that breaks my heart. It just breaks my heart to hear that. Because a much more informed way of understanding God is to know that the people who we are today is the result of God using what was dead in us so that we could be reborn. As Harnish says, by God's infinite mercy and boundless grace, Our lives are being reoriented to the new life that is God's gift to us. I'm wondering if that is good news this morning to anyone else but me. It fills me with so much hope to know that what I've been and who I've been is transformed as I learn to love and to live in Christ. And what's more, what I've been and who I've been enables me to see others not from their faults and from their mistakes and their failings, but as people in whom God is forming new things, even in the old things. From now on, we regard no one from a worldly point of view, the Apostle Paul wrote. Because if anyone is in Christ, there is a new creature. The old things have passed away. Behold, the new things have come. Are you aware that this is what we celebrate when we come to the Lord's communion table? It is. It is. We celebrate here the death that gives life. The physical being of Jesus, whom the world thought to be forever gone, is now transformed and risen in the body of Christ. His blood, which was spilt and dried and lifeless, is newly purposed with his resurrection as this healing balm for the pain of our sin. And when we internalize the broken body and the cup poured out, then we take into ourselves the transforming work of God, which means that what was dead in us is now alive. In the season of Lent, we're looking for that death which brings life. We learn to rely on it. We even pray for it. So that during these 40 days, the cross is both our journey and our destination. So maybe from a worldly perspective, the crucifixion is nothing but pain and suffering and loss and dying. But for us, it doesn't signify the end. It's only this place we come to where we can let go so that God is able to breathe life within us and to create new things among us. A new way of living, a new way of being, a new way of knowing, and a new way of being known, all through Jesus Christ.